But it can also lead us to an assumption that just because there are more people of color in the United States, we're living in this beautiful post-racial place, right? You guys have heard this term, post-racial. Well, I don't mean to burst your bubble, but it turns out that racism is still alive and well in the United States. And just acknowledging that fact for a lot of people can be really difficult. And talking about it can be even more uncomfortable.
And then the third, which is the increasingly popular option in America today, and how I was raised, is that you pass on the identity of both parents. I'm half Asian and half European, and I was raised as such. From my mother's side, I gained experience dancing in Chinese New Year parades, singing Chinese nursery rhymes with my sisters, and learning how to knead mochi to the perfect texture with my ama, or grandmother. But at night, it was my father who read us to sleep with Grimm's fairy tales and stories of grand European kings and queens. We would listen to Beethoven and Bach in the car, immersed in German and European culture. But really, American culture is what I was most immersed in. Being born and raised in America, my sisters and I most notably remember grilled cheese, rock and roll music, and the 4th of July. It wasn't always like this for interracial kids in the US. You might be surprised to hear that anti-miscegenation laws were in place in America for quite a long time. You see, anti-miscegenation pretty much just means against interracial couples. As you can see, in 1833, France abolished all interracial relationship prohibition laws. In Nazi Germany, where you'd expect it, there were anti-miscegenation laws until 1945, and then in apartheid in South Africa, you can see they were abolished in 1985. Unfortunately, in many parts of the world today, they're still in place. For example, in Saudi Arabia, there are very severe consequences against interracial couples. Now you might say, Sylvia, these are the places that
are some mixed kid problems. People think I'm everything and anything than what I actually am. People think I'm Mexican, or Puerto Rican, or Brazilian, or Colombian, or Polynesian, or honey roasted barbecue, all the Chick-fil-A sauces. And I always don't know what I actually am. So growing up mixed is different. You don't really know what group to hang out with. Do you sit with the white kids eating PB&J and Slim Jims with handwritten notes from their mom on their napkins? Or do you sit with the brown kids doing extra credit work at lunch and eating last night's leftover goodie? And I didn't want to choose because I didn't want to be a racist 6-year-old, so I grew up with everybody. But I loved hanging out with people of different ethnicities. But it confused me even more, especially when it came down to marking what I was on those ethnicity surveys. Am I Caucasian? Not just. Am I Asian? I mean, India is in Asia, but not like egg roll Asia. That's messed up. Where was the box for mixed? Or the box for brown and confused? Or the box someone shipped me in as a baby from Mexico?
I do think a lot of the pressures put on multiracial and biracial people is the need that we feel to side with the race, to pick a race, to fit in with one particular race. So feeling like you have to identify with some part of your family, some part of it's a lot easier to go with the race that people assume you are and say and tell you that you are than it is to explain to them that you're mixed.
Thank God.
We all have in our minds categories of what defines different racial groups. So we'll talk about skin color, skin tone, hair type, body type. And these are definitely physically caused, genetically caused traits. They're phenotypes that definitely are biological, and we're born with them. But the fact that we're picking those traits for the groups and categories that we put humans on, and that's an arbitrary choice.
Congratulations from all of us.
But can mixed-race people really navigate both sides of their identity? Meghan Markle identifies as mixed race, but many have still tried to pigeonhole her as white or black. Is it time that society just accepted that some people feel both? But no two experiences of being mixed race are the same. 1.2 million people were recorded as mixed race in the last census. That's 1.2 million different ideas of what it means to be mixed race. Even people within the same family can have totally different feelings about their identity.
Until 1967, in many parts of the US, it was illegal for interracial couples to be married. This means 15 years before my parents met, it would be illegal and a criminal offense for them to get married in many parts of America. In 2000, Alabama finally abolished its outstanding law prohibiting interracial marriage. Although this was unenforceable due to the act in 1967, they still had in their laws of Alabama. We do not marry interracial couples. Until 2000, very recently. And then most recently, in 2009, Justice of the Peace Keith Bardwell refused to give a marriage license to an interracial couple. That means that I and the 4.2 other interracial children in America today should not exist if these laws were in place. Only